wanted to get this out to all of you as soon as possible. That's why we're doing this middle of the week fireside chat. Your special bargaining team has just wrapped up negotiations with the district on our impacts and effects of return to in-person instruction. This is the thing that we've been working on for a while. For you all remember, this goes back to our demand to bargain a couple of weeks ago. And so here is where we are. So just a little bit of a backstory for you. We bargained over 5 different days with the district. We exchanged proposals. SMEA exchanged 5 separate proposals with the district. The district proposed 4 separate proposals. And so this final agreement we have is a culmination of that back and forth over this period of time. The folks who are working on your behalf include Harry Rausch from Ariana's Junior High, Melissa Feely from over at Battles, Jessica Husselstein, music teacher, TK, myself, of course, your SMEA president, and our amazing lead negotiator, Jonathan B.A. from over at Fairlawn School. We were supported by Andrew Oman, who is our CTA staff person. So I'm going to go through this bit by bit, and so please stick with me. So let's go ahead and take a look at this document. This first section that you're going to look at, this is kind of the introduction, the preamble, just an introduction to the document itself. There is no defensible language in this section. This is literally just an introduction. So let's go to the first item. The first item here says all sites scheduled shall conform with the length of the workday, prep time, and duty-free lunch as described in Article 5 of the Collective Bargaining Agreement. This was super important. We want to make sure that everybody gets their 40-minute lunches. They get their associated prep times, whether it's elementary or junior high, and as well as things like breaks. And so the agreement is to comply with Article 5 of the Collective Bargaining Agreement. This next section is for those folks who are being told that you're going to have to start really early. So we have a couple of sites as of right now who are being told that their start time is going to be 6:45 a.m. because student start time is 7:15 a.m. We worked really hard trying to get this pushed out or pushed forward as much as possible to get the teacher start time as close to the student start time. And just for those of you who are not aware, start time of students at 7:15 is directly related to the busing circumstances that are occurring across our district. In order to get all the students to their campuses on time, busing is going to become quite an issue. Also, a factor in the early instructional start time is the fact that there is no morning recess at any of our school sites. So once students start to be delivered to school sites, that's when the instruction time will begin. And so we were able to get the district to agree that those folks who have a 7:15 a.m. or earlier instructional time can report as late as 7 a.m. to their sites. I know this is not a big shift from 6:45 a.m., but it does provide a little bit of a buffer for folks to get themselves to their work sites. Now, this just means that on the back end of your work day, you'll add those additional minutes of prep that you didn't get at the front end of your day. This next one, number 3, all sites shall make their draft start and end schedules available no later than end of the workday, April 1st. So as of Thursday, all of you should start your spring break knowing what your start and end schedule is going to be like for your school site. Next, we have Section 4, the district will comply with California 2021 COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave. All right, what does that mean? Well, if you remember back in 2020, there was something called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Part of that act allowed folks like us to use federally paid sick time or federally supported sick time for things like if my child doesn't have daycare or childcare, if their school closes, if I am diagnosed with COVID or have COVID symptoms, if anybody in my family has COVID or COVID symptoms. And so this is a way for our employers to recoup the loss of allowing us to take sick days. And the byproduct of all that meant that we didn't actually have to burn our own sick time because our employer was being reimbursed federally. Well, now there's a state law that's similar. It's this supplemental paid sick leave that state of California has passed. And amongst other things, it allows up to 80 hours between now and September to be used for COVID-related activities and events. So if, for example, my child's school is closed and they have nowhere to go, or their daycare is closed and they have nowhere to go because of COVID, I can use this time to stay home from them while either their school site is getting themselves spun back up after their closure, or, for example, for childcare, looking for a new childcare facility. It also can be used for me if I take my vaccine and I have some kind of a reaction where I'm down for a couple of days. I think we've all heard about this as a possible reaction, especially to the second dose of folks feeling ill for a couple of days. So I can use this time for that as well. Of course, I can also use it for myself if I'm being asked to quarantine based on state and county quarantine guidelines because I've been exposed, someone in my family tested positive, and so forth. But I can also use it to care for folks in my family who have tested positive or been exposed and have symptoms and need me to be with them. So please take a look at this. Bijou Beltran sent out an email just the other day. It looks like a little poster, a little flyer. It has the specifics of this. Another key component of the supplemental paid sick leave, this guy right here, is that it went into effect yesterday on March 29th, but it is retroactive to January 1st. So if you use any of your personal sick days for any of the things that I just mentioned, or when you pull that flyer up that Beltran sent out yesterday, anything on there, then you can request the district reimburse you for the lost time that you used anytime between January 1st and now. All right. The important thing with this law is that it requires the members to request the leave. So it's not going to be automatic. It requires you to request the leave. So please keep that in mind if you're going to use this for anything that's going to come up in the future. It also requires you to request the reimbursement. So anything that's happened between January 1st and now. If you have questions about this, let me know. Number 5, when certificated unit members are required to conduct work in a shared workspace, all protocols and guidelines of the COVID safety plan, including the COVID-19 prevention plan, shall be strictly followed. It is to the greatest extent possible, more than one member shall not be required to deliver instruction either in person or virtually in the same standard indoor classroom as another member or members at the same time. This was really important to us because we know that there's some folks who are being told that there's just not enough space, not enough room, and that they're going to have to be doing their virtual teaching or their in-person teaching in the same space while somebody else is doing the same thing. And so to the greatest extent possible, this is great language for us because this really requires the district to prove that it is not possible to find an alternative workspace for one of our teachers or any of our members who are teaching. And so we really want folks to have separate teaching spaces. Number 6, teachers and sites will provide students with training and daily reminders as outlined in the COVID-19 prevention plan regarding all of the safety protocols. Unit members shall report serious violations of safety protocols to administration. So 2 important things here. 1, think of this first part as that beginning of the year where you're working with your kids, you're going over the rules, you're sharing with them what your classroom rules are, what the school rules are, what the expectations are in your workspace. This is just a new level of expectation, but it is going to be a similar training process for our kids. I know with my classroom rules and my school rules, there were constant reminders, and at some point, students had to be held accountable for the rules because they were given enough time and enough training to understand what those rules are. If there are violations of safety protocols, the serious violations, and those need to be reported directly to your site administrator. We really are hoping that all kids are so excited to come back that this will not be an issue, that they'd be more than happy to comply with all the safety, health and safety protocols, but just in case, we have this language. And then number 7, whenever possible, students who eat during the school day shall eat outdoors. We really had a lot of folks who said, hey, I don't want kids eating in my room. I can't control it. It's going to cause issues. They're going to be without masks for an extended period of time. How about the cleanup? And so whenever possible, students who eat during the school day shall eat outdoors. What's important about this too is every student doesn't need a bench to have a snack or to eat something. Smaller kids can sit on the ground. They can sit on the grass. There are lots of different possibilities for outdoor seating while students are eating during the school day. Now, this only applies if kids are eating during the school day. That really has not been ironed out yet. But just in case, we wanted to make sure we had language in this agreement that that prioritize students eating outdoors and not in our classrooms. Number 8, the district CPP shall be adhered to by bargaining unit members and management at all times. And of course, the CPP is the COVID-19 prevention plan. This is the document that's been shared a couple of times now. It's also posted at the district homepage website. If you're not familiar with the CPP or the COVID-19 prevention plan, please pull it up and take a look. This is the document that says, if this, then what? So if you have questions about what happens if I test positive, what happens if I have symptoms, what happens if we have an outbreak, this is the document that will give you information about that. It's the district CPP or its COVID-19 prevention plan. Next, we have class size language. Class sizes for all classes shall comply with the collective bargaining agreement. So that's our contract, whether distance, hybrid, or in person. And here's the important part, stable groups as recommended by the California Department of Public Health shall be maintained. So of course, we're following the CPP, which gives us our distancing guidelines and our health and safety guidelines. The stable groups is coming from the state, which says that kids who are together should stay together and should not mix with other groups of kids or instructors. And so we want to make sure that class sizes comply with this. We don't need any excuses or reasons for class sizes to get bigger than what's being required that do not follow health and safety protocols. So this language was important. This next bit, number 10, all site staff meetings, PLCs, PD, and meetings will be accessible to all teachers. And notice we listed these things out because these are all different things, right? A staff meeting is different from a PLC, which is different from a PD, which is different from other meetings. But we want to make sure that all our members have access. We did have concerns coming from groups of members about not having access to these meetings because of the way that their schedules were being designed. And we don't want folks to be left out of the informational loop. And that's really what's happening right now is these types of meetings are really a lot about information. And so we want to make sure that everybody has the same information in the same manner at the same time. And so this language will help with that. Number 11, the district shall meet and confer to negotiate as appropriate with SMEA with respect to impacts and effects, if any changes in these guidelines, both federal, state, or county entities. And so this is important too, right? We want to make sure that we get back to the table if there are any changes to the state, federal, or county guidelines when it comes to school reopening, school closures, and then reopening following any closures. And so we have this language here. Now, this last part, section 12, this has to do with the incentive that Melissa Dutra mentioned in a previous email regarding those folks who may be interested in piloting the phase 3. So we read through this, it says, classroom teachers who notify their site administration of their desire to serve as a pilot or proof of concept teacher for phase 3, synchronous instruction online and in person, at the same time, will receive a signing and training bonus of $100 upon engaging with their students in this pilot proof of concept in the classroom and online. Said classroom teacher will receive a weekly stipend of $150. So this is just a little bit of money for those of you who are interested in going to phase 3, either straight away or from 1 to 3, or going 1, 2, and 3, is that you'll receive a bonus of $100 for signing up. Also for going through whatever training will be provided. And from what I've been told, any training really will be more about using the technology, not necessarily instructional design or instructional delivery training. And then once you start engaging with your students in this synchronous simultaneous instruction, then it'll be $150 stipend each week that you do this work. And so that's we want our folks to be compensated for this additional work. Remember, you don't have to do phase 3. You can stay in phase 2 if you wish. You're not required to move on to phase 3. You can stay in phase 2 for the remainder of the school year. And so that is our agreement. This last little bit is just kind of a closure. This part's important because it says that if that this MOU resolves the negotiable impacts and effects of the return to in-person instruction for the stuff that we know about at this time, right? If other things come up, of course, we have an option to go back to the table and to renegotiate the impacts and effects of anything that comes up that we just don't know about right now, right? All components of the current collective bargaining agreement between the district and SMEA not addressed by the terms of this MOU shall remain in full force and effect. So everything else about our current contract, yes, even the expired contract that we're currently working under, is all still in effect unless there's something in this agreement that would supersede it. But everything else should be in effect. This MOU is good until June 30th, which is the end of this fiscal year, and that is the end of that document. So I'm going to link this document to the email so you can read it through yourself, but this is our return to in-person instruction agreement. And some of you are asking, well, should there have been more in this? And that's a great question. There was initially more when we first started bargaining this with the district, actually as we were preparing to bargain this with the district. But some of those items that were super important have already been resolved outside of the bargaining table. For example, we got that document from Melissa Dutra that explained how the cameras would work, that it would be a camera that would plug straight into your computer. It would act as your computer camera the same way that the one that's on your PC or your laptop. That teacher would have full control over it. That includes full control over any type of tracking that the camera may be able to do. And so that was a concern for a lot of our teachers. They didn't know how the camera would be connected, and they didn't know who would be in charge or who would control the camera. And now we know the answer to that question. The answer to that question is you, the teacher, will be in control. The other thing was the phases, 1, 2, and 3 phases that were going to be put in place this year. And people were really concerned about going into simultaneous instruction. And so when the district backed off of that and allowed folks to stay in phase 2 if they wanted to, and then those folks who wanted to move on to phase 3 may, if they so choose. And now this course agreement has a little bit of a financial incentive for those folks to do that, or at least a little financial benefit for those who make that choice. But the choice is still yours to stay in phase 2 or to move on to phase 3. So because that change was made at the district level, we didn't have to bargain that into this agreement. And so there were things like that that did occur between the time we started this process and now that are not in this agreement because it just didn't have to be. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We will talk soon. Oh, happy Easter.